Hi, welcome to Counselor's Corner. I'm Jeremy Counseller, Dean of Baylor Law School, and I am delighted today to be joined by second-year law student Cagan Baldree. Welcome, Cagan.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Dean Counseller.
Well, it's great to have you. My first question is the most important question. What is your favorite course that you've taken in law school so far, and why is it the civil procedure course that I taught you?
Well, it's the most memorable because it's the first one. You know, you got to break the seal as you first come in. Y'all make sure to ensure that all the 1Qs come in on 8 a.m. that first Monday morning, and that you're the first face we see. So you have those memories of the weekend before, and I think that that's probably consistent for most law students. The things you remember about the class is everything that goes along with it. You know, you've got the time leading up, and you're like, did I read the right stuff? I'm not entirely sure. And then you get to the first class, and you may or may not have been the first one to get called. And so, were
you the first one?
I was not.
Okay.
I was not.
Okay.
He only got me a couple times, but it was, I think, a couple weeks down the line.
How was that experience of being called on for the first time?
It's interesting because I had torts with Professor Underwood right after at 9:20, and I was the first one called in that class because I made the mistake of emailing him, and we had a mutual friend. So he said, "You knew this was coming, didn't you?" I was like, "I didn't know, but I know now not to make that mistake in the future." So I made it through that one.
So you tried to make a connection with him.
I did,
and then he made a connection with you the next day in class.
That's exactly
Seems
right.
fair.
It does seem fair. It does seem fair. I guess it's a lesson to any future law students that if you want to put yourself at risk, put yourself out there. Otherwise, you may want to conceal yourself.
It's worked out pretty well for you, though, Cagan, down the road. So let's back up a little bit before law school and tell me kind of what were the things you were doing that led up to law school? Because you've got a really interesting background.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I grew up in East Texas. I enrolled at Texas A&M in 2016. So I was there, and I was a student athlete. I played football, and I played for 5 seasons. While I was there, I wasn't entirely sure when I got into school what the long-term vision was going to be. I knew I had some interest areas, but what a career looked like was kind of unsure. So pretty soon, though, after I got there, I realized my interest in governance and policy and just how our structures, institutions work publicly in our country. I started kind of down a policy track. And so I studied economics. I got a master's at the Bush School, named after Bush 41, there at A&M as well. And so that was where my focus was while I was balancing everything with football. And when I graduated, I was married the year before I graduated to my wife, and football kind of ended kind of unceremoniously. It was the last season was the COVID season, so it was kind of a weird transition out. I ended up just working in local government in Bryan, Texas, kind of at the regional level. And as to circle back to when I was an undergrad, I had a professor that kind of dropped the crumb of law school then, and I'd always kind of kept it around in the back of my mind. And as soon as I kind of started in that job, I enjoyed it, but I knew that I wanted something a little more specific, a little different, and that law school was the right path. And so those things kind of all kind of coalesced into making the decision to start applying, and ended up here at Baylor. Yeah.
You mentioned that you're married. I also know you have 3 children.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about your family, and also, because I know you're justifiably very proud of them, but also how you balance that and the demands of law school.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I married to my wife, Sydney. We were married in 2020, so we interestingly had a COVID wedding as well. We were high school sweethearts, went to Texas A&M together, and had to have that experience, which was great. And we had our first son in 2021. And I also have a daughter that's in the middle. She's 18 months old now. And I just had my third 2 weeks ago at 9:30 when I was supposed to be taking a Crim Pro exam. So I had to postpone that a week or to the next week. But
when you say you had, would your wife agree with that? That you had your third child?
You know, we're in this together, but wording it that way is probably not as precise as she would like, and I would tend to agree with her. It would be a fair correction on her part. Okay. But that being said,
I've met your wife. I'm happy to reach out to her.
Sir, yeah,
she's delightful, but maybe she would back you up on you had the baby.
Yes,
but the balance question, how do you do that?
Sir, for sure. So I'd say first off, it's I count it as a blessing, as a boost to who I am as a law student, because it allows me to, for one thing, leave the law school and truly have other things that I have responsibilities with and priorities with, to be present with them. And so I don't have to live in this world 24/7 and constantly thinking over what we're doing. I have the time where I have to prioritize this and get the things I need to get done, but I get to go home and enjoy them and the joy that they bring me. And then the other flip side of that is the motivation that they give me, because as anybody knows, like, I'm a student now. I'm not working anymore. There's financial restraints there. There's time constraints. There's stressors that you're adding in being a student while also being a husband and a parent. And so I know that the time that I'm spending here has to be worthwhile. It has to be worthwhile for them because they're making sacrifices in the same way that I am. Yeah. And so it keeps me grounded. It keeps my priorities straight. It allows me to compartmentalize and know that I'm doing this for a reason, not just for my own career, not so that I can have a flashy job one day or anything like that. I'm doing it because this is what we're doing as a family. This is the direction we're headed. This is the work that this is the imprint I'm going to put on the world on behalf of them. Yeah. So,
you and I see each other most mornings pretty early in the morning. You're here in the Student Success Center, and I'll walk past. And I think you and I both kind of get here early. Is your plan sort of treat law school like a job, like you're here sort of all day long, but when you're done in the evening, you're done? Is that what you do?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So practically, I do. I get up here a little bit an hour before 8 a.m. On most days when I get up on time, and my job, or at least my focus, is to treat it like the job I had before I was here. It was a normal straightaway 8 to 5 hour lunch during the middle of the day, and kind of what I was referring to earlier, treating it that way, for one thing, it kind of keeps me in the straight and narrow, keeps me on the path, because I know, well, if I don't get the readings done now, they're not going to get done. Yeah. And so I don't have time to fiddle around. I don't have time to waste time in between class. And so when it's time to go to class, I'm in class. When I'm not in class, I'm here doing my readings and writings and getting things ready. And then when 5 o'clock hits, I head home, and I'm present for all that time until the kids go to sleep and until Cindy and I have some time together. If I have anything left, then I'll do it when everybody else goes to bed. Yeah. But I think when you stay ahead of it each week, it definitely helps, just doing it piece by piece as opposed to letting it all stack up on you.
Well, it's certainly working for you, because you were recently crowned the champion of the in-school moot court competition along with your partner.
Yes, sir.
So congratulations on that. And I think it's also, the schedule you just described is a schedule that I hear from a lot of lawyers out there practicing. So I think it's one that's sustainable.
Yes, sir.
Talk to me about a couple things. What organizations, if any, are you involved in here at the law school? And what experience have you had in law school that's been sort of most impactful to you?
Yes, sir. So as far as organizations, I was just added to a moot court team, to reference what you just did. So that will be my first experience on a team outside the school against other schools. Like, looking forward to that after the first of the year. But primarily in terms of organizations, I am the Director of Biblical Studies for Christian Legal Society. And so being a part of the leadership team, planning all those things, I'm also in charge of delivering devotionals on Fridays at lunch, which I thoroughly enjoy. And then I was recently joined the executive leadership team with Federalist Society as kind of the alumni relations representative as well. And so that's where I've spent most of my time. That was also to go back to the other things we've talked about in terms of time constraints and prioritizing things. I wanted to focus my time on the things I knew that I'd be most passionate about, and then give my all to those things, and then probably say no to everything else. And so the national teams, Christian Legal Society, FedSoc, those are things that I know to be passionate about. And I think that the things that have been most impactful, I would say the weekly meetings at Christian Legal Society have been great the entire time. It's where I've built the strongest relationships. I've met a lot of really great people here at Baylor Law, and so I thoroughly enjoy being there weekly with other Christians who wear lock shields and kind of go through this experience together, and keep those things rightly in perspective to know why we're in school, what we're ultimately doing this for. And so I would say those were where some of the best memories have come. Beyond even just, and the intramural school competition was great as well. I know, being a student athlete, the competitive itch is still there, and so that aspect of the law and the legal career is something that attracted me. And getting a first kind of dip of the toe into actually getting in there and doing those things was really enjoyable, and I'm really glad that we have to go through that as a part of that part.
Well, you're good at it, obviously.
Appreciate it.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the lightning round here, Cagan. Okay, so your answers have to be short. In your opinion, what is the best restaurant in Waco?
Best restaurant in Waco is probably La Fiesta.
Okay. Your favorite TV show of all time?
Favorite TV show of all time? I'd probably say The Office.
Good answer. Do you have a personal motto, scripture or quotation or some phrase that you draw on for strength or inspiration?
Yes, sir. Philippians 1:6 is the promise that God will bring about completion the work that He's began in us. And so knowing that we're a work in progress and that He'll continue it and complete it is a great comfort to me.
Your favorite novel or work of nonfiction of all time?
Okay, novel or nonfiction? I actually just finished Lord of the Rings, and it would be those collected sets as my favorite novel. So at the top of my list for me.
In 15 seconds or less, describe your dream vacation.
Dream vacation. Okay. Dream vacation would be to visit Rome and to enjoy kind of everything that Rome has to offer. I've always loved that culture, and so that's where a week-long vacation there, seeing the Colosseum, Vatican, all those things would be really cool.
Last of the lightning round. What do you want to do with your law degree?
I want to work and serve. I want to serve the state of Texas, the country broadly. I want to make it back to East Texas and serve my local community that I grew up in. That's what I'm really passionate about doing. And so finding areas of the law that would be most impactful there are going to be the thing that I'm going to be looking for when I leave.
Great. I understand you might have a question or two for me.
Yes, sir. So my first one would be, and first of all, we want to thank you on behalf of CLS and the student body as well. Since you've taken over, you have placed an emphasis on the Christian Confession of Baylor. And you've had the Dean's Devotionals that you've started, which we've loved, and the prayer meeting we had on behalf of your starting off. I guess, in what point in the process did you realize that those were things that you wanted to introduce and make a priority as you were selected and as you were transitioning in? And what's that been like as the dean?
Well, I guess I'm drawing on my own experience as a law student. In one experience in particular, when I was in law school, and you're well aware of this, law school is a process of people throw you balls that you have to try to keep in there, that you have to try to juggle. And when I was in law school, I think one of the balls I decided to set down was an active faith life, just to be very candid about it. And what that resulted in for me was, I remember one Easter when I was in law school, I said, well, it's Easter, I need to go to church. And I went to church, and I sat in a church of great people, but I didn't know anybody. And I had never felt more lonely in law school than at that moment. And I also, then when I get back out in practice, I'm drawing on my faith to handle the stresses and strains. So here at Baylor Law School, we prepare students for the practice of law, and I think I wouldn't be doing right by all of our students if I didn't say, hey, for me, faith has been an important part of how to navigate the practice of law. Having said all that, we welcome all students of all faiths. As you know, we have students of every, every faith imaginable. And all of our faith activities are voluntary, of course. But,
yes, sir.
For me, it's just part of who I am, and I want to be who I am. And I'm grateful that Baylor's a place where I can be,
yes, sir.
Who I am.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. And then if they allow me one more, there's
apparently they're allowing you. They haven't thrown us out yet.
They haven't cut us off yet.
No.
So with civil procedure, the famous introductory course to the whole thing, is it true that you have it scripted almost like a movie, just down to the minute, even with the student responses? Because at times that's the rumor that we could even go find a file where you have this with dialogue and blanks filled in for the students that down to the note, to the minute.
It's not scripted. But if you saw a transcript of civil procedure from one term and then saw a transcript from the next term, it would look a lot alike because I'm covering the same material, and students' responses aren't always the same, but they've all happened before. And so I respond to them in the same way. I mean, I think I may have said to you, when you've taught it as many times as I have, it's sort of like Groundhog Day. It's not the same thing over and over again, but what happens has happened before,
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And so, it's sort of like being able to predict the future when you're standing in a class you've taught 60 times.
Yes, sir.
So,
absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Cagan, thank you so much. We're really proud of you, and you're going to be a great lawyer.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dean Counseller. I appreciate it.